Like, don't use the band, because his band are amazing. But the thing that Nigel was like, he didn't want them to go down all the Beatles paths, you know, the sort of like, oh, this is, you know, a Ringo fill, or this is what Harrison would do, or so he was trying to convince McCartney to do it, to get sort of put them on the sidelines for that record. And Paul was feeling like, I think, quite guilty about that, because, you know, it's his band. But I was there one day when they were going through it, and I was just happened to throw in my, you know, 2 pence worth, and I was like, well, you know, Paul, it's like, because he'd done a demo of one of the songs and he'd done drums in it. I was like, it's like that drum thing you did, and it's so like you're going, I'm talking to Paul McCartney. Be cool, just be fucking cool. I'm like, yeah, it's like that drum thing you did when, you know, you're not a drummer. So when you sit in the kit, you've not got the map. You go, so it's like going to a city. You go, if you don't have the map, you go down the little side street and you find the cool little shop. You're like, oh, brilliant! No one else has found. Same thing as if you're sitting behind the kit. You're like, oh, and you do a little accident. And the drummers would never do that because it's not on their map. And he's like, that's a good one. So the next day, Nigel phones me up. He's like, what did you say to him? It's totally changed. And I was like, I don't know. He said, apparently McCartney gone, you know, it's like what's his face said. And I was like, and what's his face? And he's like, yeah. I was like, yes, I'm on the map. And so that was I was on the radar. So and I think we met again in Live 8, you know, that big let's do Live 8 again, except a little bit shitter. And so I did it. I met him at that, but that was a disaster actually, because he invited everyone back to his fancy sort of cordoned off area in his tent for like drinks after the big finale, singing Hey Jude. Johnny Burrell was a nightmare that night. That guy from Razorlight, he was like out front, like in a big white suit, like pushing everyone out the way, going, "Hey Jude!" We're like, "Is he on? You want to see it? Look at it on YouTube." Slightly embarrassing. But we were all just hanging back, and this guy was getting carried away. I'm digressing, but I went backstage. We get invited. We're all there. I met what's his name that did the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, Peter Blake. Right, and I'm like, oh, because we all went to art school, and I'm like, oh man, it's Peter Blake, and there's George Michael, and there's like all these mega like potheads everywhere. And then, so I'm talking to Peter Blake, and I'm like, are you hungry? And he's like, you know, I am. And I was like, there's some bread. I saw a toaster over there. Do you want a bit of toast? And he's like, yeah, oh, that. You know what? That's a great idea. So I get the toast, the bread. I walk over, the place is packed, right? There's people just like milling about, and I'm like, bread, put it in the toaster, and I go, with the thing to put the toast down, all the lights backstage went, I'm like, McCartney's security guys go like, coming in the room, and I was like, fuck it off! And then it went all quiet, and I was like, and the lights kind of came on like 2 minutes later, and it was a real like, and I was like standing there, and everyone was looking at me like, I was just trying to make some toast. There's a picture of me in that moment that his brother, like a photographer guy, took this picture, and I'm like, anyway, so that was the second time I met him. So the cold call wasn't so cold after all. It was like. And also because everyone, when you ask McCartney to do anything, it's always like, oh, could you sing, or could you stand beside this, or whatever, put your name to this. But no one ever taps him for bass. I thought it'd be really cool, because he's overlooked as a bass player because he's such a great songwriter, and he's such a great, but if you listen to the Beatles bass lines, they're insane, they're like symphonies, they're unbelievable. And so, yeah, James Jamerson, Paul McCartney, you know, they're like something. So anyway, I emailed him, he got back, he said, great. He's on the record, and to say thank you to him, I became a vegetarian because I was trying to balance the equation. So I've done some interviews, and the guy's like, some people have been like, that's a bit weird. And I'm like, well, you know, it's not every day a Beatle plays on your record, you know, and you've got to balance that off, and I'm not going to buy that kind of present. That's an expensive present. So I thought I'd do a gesture. Anyway, he loved it. He sent me 3 Linda McCartney cookbooks. Three days later, like, with a little post-it note on top saying, "Hope this is enough to get you started, love Paul." I'm like, oh my god. He's really, what a guy, he's amazing. Anyway, this is the song he played on, and it's about an old guy it's like a song to his wife who, he's a typical British old guy, he's in his 80s and he's just like, blames his wife for everything, like all his misfortune, her fault. He's watching his friends, or in the second verse of the song, his mates are dying, but he's so blasé about it, he's just like, oh, I'll have to get a new tie. And he just sort of loves her conditionally. The song's called As It Comes, and he gets a lesson taught to him in the last verse. We used to look at each other, but now we look at the past. We used to go out for dinner and feed the ducks in the park. You say that I could be thinner, I say retract that remark. And I'm loving you each day as it comes. I'll never let you be lonely as long as you're by my side. You say you'd leave me if only another tear in the eye, another funeral parlour. I'll have to get a new tie. And I'm loving you each day as it comes. Time has come, time has come and gone, and all I've done comes undone. Dun, da da dun. As I lie here beside you, with Jack Frost in the air, you look like an angel with that net in your hair. I kiss you so softly, but you're no longer there. Now I'm taking every day as it comes. Da 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 dum, da da dum. Thanks.